South Point is also proud to provide a variety of relaxing amenities for the guests who want to be pampered. Soak up the sun and let your stress melt away in our lagoon-style paradise swimming pool. A relaxing getaway where you can bask in the desert sun and enjoy seasonal food and bar service poolside. And if you really want to escape, come to Spa Costa del Sur. From couple suites to a co-ed wet area, our spa caters to business and leisure travelers who want to unwind and elevate their senses. A visit to one of our spa's steam, sauna, or whirlpool treatment rooms will leave any guest feeling like they can take on the world. Our gaming amenities include over 60 table games and over 2,600 of the most popular slot and video poker machines. We have penny slots, including the popular Buffalo games, and real machines like Wheel of Fortune, Triple Sevens, and Megabucks. If you prefer video poker, try Deuces Wild, Double Double Bonus, or a variety of multi-denomination games. Or try your hand at one of the most popular casino table games in the world, Blackjack. Don't let the game intimidate you. Blackjack, also known as 21, is both easy and fun. And our dealers are always happy to assist. And the best part? Blackjack always pays 3 to 2. Next, check out the roulette tables. Roulette is one of the easiest casino games to learn, and so much fun to play. It's a favorite of both beginners and seasoned players. In addition to blackjack and roulette, our casino pit features over 60 popular table games like Baccarat, Pai Gow Poker, 3-Card Poker, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, and Mississippi Stud. So get out of your room and come join in the fun.
Welcome in. It is a Thursday morning here on the West Coast, high noon on the East. We are very happy to be with you as always. I'm Jeff Parles. It is Sports by the Book there's 3 more, including today, there's 3 more Thursdays in the month of October because Halloween, of course, comes 2 weeks from today. We're happy to be with you. We got a lot to get to today. A few college football games, an NFL game, 2 big-time playoff games in Major League Baseball. I will bring up one hockey game that I actually will have a play on, and that'll be the hockey spotlight for today. That will come at the end of the show. Our friend Dan Zaborski joins us in about 10 minutes from now. We are very excited to start off. Not start off. This is show 2 of 4 today, right, in the network, right? Race Day Las Vegas already kicked off here this morning. If you want this week's version of Gone Racing, already available right now on the South Point Studio YouTube page. And then, of course, Punchlines and then Ryan McCormick and I are back at 3 o'clock for Football Frenzy, getting you ready for the day in football. We're also going to get you ready for the day in football right here because we're going to start in New Orleans at the Superdome. Let's start there. The Saints, or whatever version of the Saints you want to call them here tonight, take on the Denver Broncos. Denver's moving in at 3-3. New Orleans, since that 2-0 start where they scored the 3rd most points of anyone in NFL history through 2 games, have lost 4 straight games. So they're 2-4, and they've regressed back to exactly what I think a lot of people thought they were going to be this year, which was a pretty mediocre football team. There are a ton of injuries here tonight. So New Orleans is going to be without. Derek Carr's doubtful, so don't expect to see him. Taysom Hill is doubtful. Don't expect to see him. Chris Olave's already gone with a concussion. He's out this week. And then Rashid Shaheed, who has a knee injury, is going to be on the shelf for a while as well. So I just mentioned 4 of their 5 best offensive players are going to be out here today for New Orleans. Alvin Kamara is still there. Spencer Rattler gets a 2nd consecutive start at the quarterback position. Last week's game was a bizarro one where Baker Mayfield threw 3 interceptions in the first half, and then New Orleans didn't score in the second half because of that, because of the protection of the ball. Here are the wide receivers tonight for the New Orleans Saints. Mason Tipton, Cedric Wilson, Bub Means are your top 3 receivers tonight. If you didn't know who Bub Means was until last week when he caught a touchdown, I can't blame you because I don't know if anyone in this studio knew who Bub Means was before last week. In order to stay in this game for New Orleans, now Denver has one significant injury. Patrick Surtain, the second, the best corner in the NFL, is out. He has a concussion as well. So injuries will play a huge role in this game all the way through. Now, you look at the way that this game will play out. 37 is your total. That is a pretty low total. Denver is a 3-point road favorite. Oh, by the way, also Cesar Ruiz is still out, the high-end guard for the New Orleans Saints. So that's another one you have to monitor as well. But look, this is a matchup tonight between two teams that I still have power rated in the bottom quadrant, not quadrant, but bottom half of the league. I don't really take much from Denver's 3-game winning streak before this. Look at the teams other than the game against Tampa, which was just half of Tampa's defense was out. They didn't show up on offense either. Denver's defense played a phenomenal game. The Jet game, look, the Jets just might not be any good. The Raiders we know aren't any good. I didn't take much of anything from Denver's 3-game winning streak. They really showed who they were last week, getting in a big hole. Yeah, Chargers kind of stopped playing, and that's why that game got tight at the end, and Denver only lost by a touchdown in that game. New Orleans is so hard to evaluate with all these guys out, but we'll have the full thoughts later in the day on Football Frenzy. This would be a lean at the moment. Now that we're out to a flat 3, out to a flat 3 in this game, I would totally be looking at New Orleans plus the 3 in this game. That's the way that I would look here. Now, there are plenty of questions about New Orleans defense, where last week against Tampa, 51 points given up. Not all those points were on the fault of the defense. There were a lot of turnovers that led to that ridiculousness. But Tampa had 594 yards of offense for basically 8 yards of play. That's not good enough, obviously. New Orleans is at 4.6 yards per play. And you would look at the scenario here for New Orleans, where you have a rookie quarterback who actually I thought looked somewhat comfortable. Now look, that all of New Orleans' points last week came in the second quarter. The 27 spot in the second quarter was all really ridiculous, more so than anything. There was a punt return mixed in there. There was the 10-yard field off of Baker Mayfield interception. They had another short field goal. Like, they did a lot of their points came off of nonsense. 17 of the 27 came off of nonsense. So there is a concern against, even without Patrick Surtain II, there is a concern about the ability, especially with all those skill position players out, concern of being able to move the ball for New Orleans here tonight. But you're giving me, again, short week, as bad a travel as you're basically going to get at this point on a Thursday night game with Denver going to New Orleans. That's still over a 3-hour flight. The NFL doesn't do that much on Thursday night anymore. It would be a take of the 3. It would be a take of the 3 here tonight with New Orleans. I'm not sure if I would have enough to money line the Saints, but taking the 3 makes a whole lot of sense on New Orleans here at home against Denver here tonight. In college football's landscape, the Boston College Eagles head to Blacksburg, Virginia tonight to take on Virginia Tech. Now, BC, one of the early season darlings, again, probably because Florida State just was not as good as we thought they were going to be. And it's a big surprise that Boston College at the time went down there and beat Florida State. Now it's not much of a surprise at all. Boston College has not played in 12 days. The last time they played was also in the Commonwealth of Virginia, taking on the Cavaliers of UVA. And that was a game where Boston College gave up 18 fourth-quarter points, with 15 of them coming off of Boston College mistakes, in a game that, quite frankly, Boston College should have won on the road. Virginia has shown not to be as bad as we thought they were. They're 4-2. They had a good shot at beating Louisville last week, just couldn't hold on at the end. But Virginia more likely than not, well, their schedule is tough. Virginia will have a shot at a bowl down the stretch. Virginia Tech, on the other hand, if you look at the Hokies, that loss to Rutgers at home, they've looked like a different team since then. The 26-23 loss to the Scarlet Knights, look, they should have beat Miami. You're up double digits in the second half. You obviously have that weirdo play at the end where it was ruled a touchdown on the field and then got overturned to being an incomplete pass with not very conclusive video evidence to say it was an incomplete pass. But you're in a scenario here where Tech's last game out, they went to Stanford and really just beat up on the Cardinal in that game. A very good showing by the Hokies their last time out. That was also 12 days ago, a 31-7 victory in that game. Now that you're north of 7, though, in this game, I would very much look to take the points with Boston College north of 7. Now, I have questions about the health of Thomas Castellanos, who, of course, missed the game against Western Kentucky, then came back and looked okay for 3 quarters and then had their meltdown in the fourth against Virginia 12 days ago. But this feels like a lot of points to be laying where these teams are close enough in talent and close enough, honestly, coaching-wise, is a big advantage for O'Brien and Boston College over Pry. I would very happily take 7 here, 7.5 with Boston College on the road against Virginia Tech. That would be the play here, taking the points with the Eagles of Boston College. The last game of the night, been a little bit of a mover overnight and just moved before the show started. Marshall hosts Georgia State. It was 9. Now it's 8 with a total of 51 in this game. Georgia State, of course, has the win over Vanderbilt. That's their calling card this year. Now looking back, kind of stunning that Georgia State won that game. Now that we know Vanderbilt is far from a pushover, they actually might be a pretty darn good football team at this point. Marshall is coming off of just an epic disaster last week, up 23-3 going into the fourth quarter in Statesboro against Georgia Southern, and the Eagles roared back with 21 unanswered in the fourth quarter to beat them by a point. Really just a train wreck all the way around for the Thunder and Herd. Now they return home. I agree with the market move here. I thought 9 was a little much on the Panthers of Georgia State. This feels like a one-score game, kind of like the other game. I think this is a night where the underdogs should be able to play these games within a score, and if you do, you end up covering both of these games. That would be the look for me, at least this morning. Again, we'll have a full breakdown of these two games coming up on Football Frenzy at 3 o'clock. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're shifting to baseball. Dan Zaborski of Fangraphs on his thoughts on the 2 games tonight. I'll also give my thoughts and also one hockey game for the road at the end here. We'll be back in 2 minutes right here on Sports by the Book.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book here on a Thursday morning. Happy to be with you. I'm Jeff Parles, and now joining us, you see, I got the headphones on, which means we have a guest. Our good friend Dan Zimborski joins us right now, of course, from Fangraphs, also ESPN, creator of Zips with us right now. DS, how we doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you today, Jeff?
I'm good. I was going to go DZ, but then, of course, your name starts with an S. It's like, all right, well.
Yeah, but it says it's pronounced like an S.
I know.
And it's cooler to be Z.
Yeah.
My dad wanted to name me Alexander, and I could have been Xander Zimborski, which would have been really cool. But alas.
Boy. Well, that would have been a hell of a name, actually. Yeah, no kidding on that. All right, Dan, let's 2 games today. These next 2 days could very easily be the final 2 days of the year with multiple games on a baseball card. And let's start in the American League Championship Series first, where, quite frankly, Dan, the Yankees look like the superior team, as I think a lot of people expected. The betting markets told you that, and they took the first 2 at home. Now the scene shifts to Cleveland. Awkward 5 p.m. start for this game in Ohio. The Yankees, the smallest of favorites of this game right now, minus 115 behind us, plus 105 on the take back for the Guardians. Matthew Boyd, who's looked perfectly solid in his 2 appearances so far this postseason, gets the ball for the Guards. And then Clark Schmidt, the surprise starter in the ALDS, gets the ball yet again here in Game 3 for the Bronx Bombers, with the Yankees a small favorite here, up 2-0.
Yeah, one of the things I said about the Yankees is that their best scenario for getting rid of Cleveland is to get to the team early, try to stretch out the Guardians' bullpen as much as they can, have them have to cover 6, 7, 8 innings more than once. And they kind of did that in Game 2. Obviously, they got a day off, but if they can continue to get to Guardians pitchers early, I think that gives them the edge. One of the interesting things in the projections is that the longer and closer the game was, the more the Guardians had an edge, because they had the deeper bullpen and they had the deeper bench with more situational players. But 2-0 is a pretty significant lead now. The Guardians have one more loss they can afford now.
So I'll just ask you this, because you mentioned it with the bullpen usage. I know Bybee had his struggles early in that game, but I was a little bit surprised in a game. And look, I get it from Stephen Vogt. All right, I don't want this game to get out of hand. I don't want to get in a scenario where this game is over early. But I was a little bit surprised with the way he managed his bullpen, where the only guy of the 4 horsemen that didn't pitch was Clase. I know they had the off day, Dan, but again, we're kind of seeing the opposite with how Dave Roberts is managing his bullpen. You don't want to see You don't want to see the opportunity for the Yankees' big boppers to see your big time guys as many times as possible. It didn't really help Detroit, but I would imagine if this series extends past 5 games, it would hurt Cleveland in that scenario.
I think it was Mike Petriello. I don't remember offhand, but someone posted some data yesterday on Twitter because we all know about starting pitchers when they get to the 3rd time through the lineup. But this look was at relievers the 3rd time they face a batter during the series. And as the series go on, the longer you see the same guy, those numbers went up similarly to the same starting pitcher penalty. So there is a case for not really showcasing him too much, and when they do, be pretty straightforward. Like the Dodgers brought in Michael Kopech pretty early yesterday, but they didn't really do anything fancy. They just had Michael Kopech throw a bunch of fastballs. So that probably preserved him as a little bit of a surprise, maybe. Now you do worry the Yankees have gotten a good look at Cade Smith, and he's one of their weapons. But it's really interesting to see, because just how these next 2 games, the contour of them will affect how the bullpens are used the rest of the way.
No, and it's interesting too, because at least from the Yankees' perspective, also, look, Luke Weaver has been a revelation so far since going into the closer's role. And look, the game situation presented itself that you had to use him. Weaver got 5 outs in Game 1. And then in Game 2, Weaver got pitched another inning and actually even gave up a run in the 9th in Game 2. It's just kind of the same sort of thing on both sides. But look, it's the postseason. I understand these guys are going to have to pitch in high leverage situations. But again, we started to see this more. And you mentioned the Dodgers, which we'll get to in a second. The really difference in some thinking here with some of these managers with utilizing the bullpen.
Yeah, I was not a fan of the Luke Weaver usage in game 2. He came into the game with a 4-run lead.
Right.
And given the constraints of the postseason, you're going to have to, if you can't trust your non-closers with a 4-run lead for one inning, then you're in serious trouble. I don't think it was a situation necessarily where he should have been in the game. Although I admit I am quite surprised by how good Luke Weaver's been this year. I did not see that coming.
Well, it's funny because we see every once in a while these a random bad starter turn into a reliever and become awesome. I mean, again, when you see Weaver's stats for this year, it's like, oh my God, this guy's an elite reliever now, and he was one of the worst starters in baseball 3 years ago. It's kind of amazing how you just see that shift every once in a while. Dan, I'll make you predict, at least for this first game. Who do you like here today? Yankees -115 on the road here against Cleveland.
I think I have to go with the Yankees.
So I'm
an Orioles fan, remember? So.
Oh, I know. Do they wrap this thing? Do they wrap this thing tomorrow then and make this a 4-game sweep then if they win today?
I don't think it's going to be a sweep necessarily. I think if they're up 3-0, they might kind of go B squad a little bit, give everyone a little bit of rest. We'll see. I never really predict a sweep though.
Going to the NL game tonight, the Dodgers, for the second time in 3 games in this series, have a blowout shutout. Honestly, Dan, I know game 2 got tight, but these games have mostly been non-competitive one way or another between the Mets and the Dodgers. Look, tonight Yamamoto gets his first start of this series. Quintana gets his first start of this series. What are you looking at here today as potential keys to this game? Dodgers are about $1.30 favorite in this one here at the South Point.
I'm kind of worried from the position of the Mets for Quintana against the Dodgers because Quintana at this stage of his career is that crafty veteran Eddie Harris from Major League character in his pitching repertoire. No spitters or anything, but you look at what he does. The Dodgers are a very disciplined team offensively at the plate. They swung at the 3rd fewest out of zone pitches in baseball this year, and you contrast that with Quintana's previous couple starts. Those were far more aggressive teams. So I think there is a danger that the Dodgers get to Quintana. And that's a pretty big deal because this is probably the Dodgers' best matchup. And if they win it, you're talking a 3-1 edge, even if they don't have Yamamoto, but they can probably keep that bullpen stretched when they only need one more win after tonight. So this is a big game for the Mets.
Well, this kind of feels like, and again, if we have doubted the Mets at any point this year, you've gotten burned. It's just the way they have been so far in 2024. I just bring this up here, Dan, because just thinking about it going into that game 5 between the Dodgers and the Padres, my old thinking was, I think the Padres are the more well-rounded team all the way put together, and that would be the tougher matchup. But you just mentioned a key point, and it's already showed up in all 3 games. The Dodgers are so patient at the plate. And the biggest weakness with this Mets pitching staff is they walked a ton of people all year long. And right now, the Dodgers are averaging 8 walks a game on offense. If that happens for a 7-game series, it could be very hard for the Mets to potentially come back in this series with all these free base runners the Dodgers have gotten, especially through 3 games.
Yeah, the Dodgers offense could be unleashed here. And one thing that really hurts the Mets is they haven't really stretched out that Dodger bullpen at all. Kopech, as I talked about him already briefly, his was quick. They didn't really go through all their names. They actually, because of the lead last night, they were able to essentially, have what's his face? Ben Kasparius.
Yep.
I forgot his name already. As a mop-up guy, and he's not someone who's going to throw high leverage innings. The Dodgers, the back of the bullpen isn't quite as impressive as it is for some other teams like Cleveland. So if you give the Dodgers the opportunity to just showcase their top 5 or 6 relievers, you're going to have a problem.
Well, and look, we saw that in the San Diego series. Did not see it in game 2. But Michael Kopech threw 1 inning last night. He also used Trinan as well, which kind of surprised me. Granted, it was still a 4-0 game in the 7th inning when he used Trinan. But again, look, Roberts has done a good job, at least in this postseason. And this was the key to the San Diego series. And we mentioned it again earlier. But this is kind of the telling story right now for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Their bullpen has been so good so far through this postseason, except for Game 2 against the Mets. In part, Dan, because, like we've said, they've used their relievers in the correct fashion, and they're not repeating seeing the same batters back-to-back games.
It's a team that doesn't panic. And going into these series, you look at their rotation and say, we're only going to get one start from Yamamoto. That's a scary thing. They've stuck to their ground about not pitching Yamamoto on 4 days rest. I kind of thought they might have to in this series, but it looks like their gamble might pay off because if they rest him normally after this, then they can use him twice during the World Series if they should get there. And that does improve their plans considerably because when you have so few starters who arms are fully connected, you need the ones you have. Now Walker Buehler's start last night was terrific. He had some command issues at time, but he had probably the nastiest stuff I've seen from him since before his Tommy John surgery, which is a big boon for the Dodgers because that knuckle curve was mean last night. That sinker was just brutal. If getting Buehler back essentially would be just a massive addition to them.
Well, you just brought up a big point there because going into that game last night, and the market price told you this, that like this is even with the bullpen game, the Dodgers were still about $1.40 at home in that bullpen game against the Mets. Last night, that was a coin flip. And Buehler, who the last time we saw him just got destroyed by the Padres, didn't even get out of the 3rd inning of that game. And you're right. He only went 4 innings. They were high leverage 4 innings, but he struck out more guys in that game than he had in his previous 3 starts combined, Dan. It was quite the boost that the Dodgers got. And look, if Buehler's going to pitch like that, then you got to reevaluate their prospects in a potential World Series against the Yankees, as you said.
Yeah, the Mets had a below 50% contact rate against Buehler last night. And that is just crazy low. You look at Javier Baez, and when we say that he's having trouble, he's usually kind of in the mid 60s when he's a disaster. But they were below 50%, and the Mets pretty much missed the vast majority of the sweepers and the knuckle curves that Buehler was throwing all night. And to have that back and him not relying on that 4-seamer, which hasn't been his best pitch in a few years, it's just, again, it's a giant boost for the Dodgers that I think a lot of people might not have expected seeing him pitch this year.
Dan, if the Mets are going to get back into the series, what has to happen?
They got to get to Yamamoto early today, I think. I think you have to kind of break serve against the matchup that is probably the least positive for you in the 4 possible games remaining. You have to wear out their bullpen and then kind of get to their duct tape reliever, their duct tape rotation, just based on beating up their bullpen. So I think that they should probably be as aggressive as possible. Try to knock Yamamoto out in the 2nd inning or something. And I think that gives them probably their best chance to even things up.
I will ask you this because Carlos Mendoza was asked about potential lineup changes after the game last night with Alvarez and Iglesias and JD Martinez really struggling. Seemed pretty stubborn about the idea. And Dan, the one thing that we do know with Yamamoto, he has aggressive reverse splits where left-handers are significantly worse against him than right-handers this year.
Yeah, I think one problem for the Mets, though, is their reserves aren't that great. I think they're kind of in that fantasy football zone where you kind of play your best players and hope it works out.
Dan, we'll let you go. We'll get you back next week because by next Thursday, we'll either be, if both the Dodgers and Yankees complete these things in 5 games, we'll already be 2 games into the Fall Classic, or we'll be a day away from the Fall Classic getting underway wherever it may be. Dan Szymborski, Fangraphs, ESPN, Zips, D. Szymborski on the tweets. Dan, pleasure as always. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Always fun, Jeff. Thanks for calling me.
Of course. Always great to have him on. Dan Szymborski everyone. All right, real quick, my plays in the two baseball games today. I like the favorite in the American League game. That's the Yankees. I said last week that if the Yankees drew the Guardians, that this would be a 4-game sweep. And it sure seems to be that way. Now, the question mark in this game on the Yankees is how far can Clark Schmidt go? And will Aaron Boone panic at the first sign of trouble for Clark Schmidt? We know Boyd's probably not going more than 5 innings at most in this game. His total outs is only 13 and a half in most shops, so not expected to even get through the 5th for Boyd. But this Yankees team's just better. And sure, you maybe get a boost for the first home game for Cleveland, but I expect the Yankees to win today. I expect them to win tomorrow. I think they'll be waiting at least a few days for the World Series to begin. On the National League side, the Mets, plus 122 underdogs. I would look to the first inning, no run. That would be what I would look at. Now, the only thing that I would say, and Dan brought it up and he's right, Jose Quintana's magical run the last 5 weeks of the season where he had a sub-1 ERA, he was getting teams to chase. Quintana does not throw a lot of his pitches in the strike zone. It's just the way that he pitches. He nibbles on the edges. And the Dodgers, who were the most patient team left by a wide margin in this playoff field, who have already drawn 8 walks per game against Met pitching through the first 3 games, it's not the greatest of matchups for Quintana. Now, for Yamamoto, I'm with Dan. If the Mets are going to win this game, Yamamoto, they got to get the Yamamoto early. If they don't get the Yamamoto early, and this is a 5-inning outing for Yamamoto, the Mets are going to lose this game. And more likely than not, this series is probably over. Even though doubting this Met team is probably a bad idea, I just don't see how they can win 3 straight games. This is basically your gotta-have-it night for the New York Mets. I would lean to no run in the first inning, no play on the side. If you made me play it, I would take the price with the Mets, but not overly confident on that. I don't think the Dodgers on the road should be ever more against this Met team. I don't think they should be more than $1.25. So be a small lean to the Mets, but not much there when it's all said and done. All right, hockey today. Big card. I do have one play, and that is on the New Jersey Devils on the road north of the border against Ottawa. Best price in the market's $1.30 right now in New Jersey, $1.35 behind us favorites. Ottawa just can't play defense. That's really what it comes down to more than anything. I know the Sens are off to a good start. I know they played 2 reasonable defensive games, and then on Canadian Thanksgiving on Monday they won 8-7. That would be my anticipation for what Ottawa really is this year, that they are a mediocre defensive team. The Devils have been much more sound 2 nights ago notwithstanding. They've been much more sound because they actually have a goaltender for the first time in a while. Allen's a good backup. Schneider is Markstrom, Markstrom is a real goaltender. Schneider, we're going back in a time machine on that. But now you're in a scenario, you're on the road, you're playing a team that you're better than. I like New Jersey minus 130. 135 is still fine on the Devils as well. And not much that stands out. The only other thing I'd consider is if you can get plus 125 with St. Louis at home against the Islanders. That would be the only other thing I would look at today on the hockey front, on a big card. Again, I'm very cautious early in the year on hockey. Very, very cautious. A lot of unknown. See how it all plays out through the year. It's also pretty crazy. We're 5 days away from the NBA season. You know that? 5 days away. Knicks and Celtics get us rolling next Tuesday. I'm going to give, for Alex and Kenny next week, I'm going to give them my favorite future in the NBA because I want to hold that off till we get to next week. But I have one that I really like, and it's one that I don't think you'd be too surprised with if you look at the numbers. But I think there's one team that stands above the rest, and it's not the defending champs, and it's not the champs of 2 years ago. That's all I'll tell you on the NBA front. All right. That's what we got today. We're We're back at 3 here on this channel. Ryan McCormick and myself get you ready for the day in football and the week in football. Our friend Dwayne Colucci will join us as well on that show. And then, of course, on the network, Punchlines FN, Frank Nicotero, and his Hour of Fun on Punchlines comes your way at noon. We'll see you later in the day. We'll also see you again at this time slot tomorrow because Kenny White previews the weekend right here on Sports by the Book. Good luck on all your plays today, everybody.